The story of a school principal forced to choose between saving his superintendent's dying mother and accepting a bribe that would finally unlock the school's desperately needed funds. Hello, friends. You're listening to The School Principal, Part 13, written by Jalal Al-e Ahmad.
The next morning, it became clear that the school superintendent had been preoccupied with his mother's situation. She was supposed to be hospitalized to undergo radiation therapy for her cancer. I had pulled strings for her from the very beginning and had asked a couple of my former classmates who had studied medicine to take care of her. Now, even though a hospital bed had been secured for her, she was terrified and refused to go to the hospital. The superintendent wanted me to officially intervene, go with him to their house, and with the smooth talk he said I possessed, convince his mother, and so on. There was no other way. It was evident from the superintendent's eyes that he hadn't slept the night before. In this state, schoolwork was suffering. We left the school to the teachers and set off. Buses, taxis, alleyways, and finally their house, a room in a rented courtyard the size of a palm. The width of its pool was a single step, and the mother, with sunken eyes, looked as if she had rubbed charcoal on her face. It wasn't black, but her complexion was so dark it frightened me. There was no face left. It was a large, blackened sore that seemed to have burst forth from where her eyes and mouth should be. There was talk and stories and praises of her son and the prime of youth and the burden of responsibility and hospitals just aren't what they used to be and all these lies and nonsense. We draped her chador over the headscarf on her head, and off we went. Taxi and bus again, then the hospital, and until noon from this room to that, inspecting the bed, checking for less dampness on the walls, cleaner sheets, until we got her settled in. Then again, 2 or 3 of my old students, and their jibes and recommendations, and we were finally free by early afternoon. The next day, when I came to school, the superintendent was in good spirits, and it was clear he was rid of something. And he announced that the 3rd grade teacher had been arrested. He had been in hiding for over a month, and we had been giving his work completion forms to his unofficial substitute, so his salary hadn't been interrupted. We would have continued until official news came out, appeared in some newspaper, and the matter reached the Ministry of Education and the payroll. But once the news became official, we couldn't even send a qualified substitute and had to follow regulations. That was the bad part. Besides all this, I kept thinking, with those thin legs and that trembling frame, how would he escape the fetters and chains of that dungeon unharmed? Why didn't you even talk to him? Why didn't you make him understand it's useless? But was it my fault? He never even crossed my path so I could ask how he was. He actively avoided me. I smoothed things over for all of them, even for the janitors. What difference did it make to me? And again, a few more days of feeling responsible and uneasy until I decided to go visit him. And then the feeling that the school had emptied out and the classes were often idle. The substitute for the 4th grade teacher still hadn't gotten his act together, and now another class would be without a teacher. And since the beginning of the year, we were also owed that reserve teacher who was supposed to come and cover the hours we had generously given to others. So I found myself chasing after the head of the Ministry of Education again. It turned out that girl was frightened and "You made a pass at her before she was even ready." That's what the head of the ministry said. And it was preferable she just do clerical work under his own supervision. And then promises, and tomorrow, and the day after, and finally 4 days of running around until I got 2 teachers. One was a polite, fair-skinned young man from Rasht with fine, thick hair whom we put in charge of the 4th grade. And the other was another one of those Brill Cream boys who changed his tie every day with strange and bizarre patterns. The other one only had that one tie with its dirty yellowish tinge and a big anchor in the middle, and he wore it every day. But this one acted like he'd stumbled upon Korah's treasure or owned a haberdashery. A new tie every day, and what designs! A tall palm tree that ended under the knot, and below it the sea pouring onto the guy's chest. Or a bloody heart in the middle with a staff line above it and a few notes on it. And before he even entered the room, the smell of his cologne would fill the air. They'd really stuffed the ministry with these dandies. Oh well. We put him in charge of the 3rd grade. You can't be holier than thou. And once the school got somewhat back in order, I returned to my own work. Leighton Bauman One day, the superintendent came to my room saying he had secured the school's budget. I said, "Congratulations. How much did you get?" "Nothing yet, sir. They're supposed to come here tomorrow at noon, sir, and do the deal right here." And the next day, I didn't go to school at all. He surely wanted me to be there too, to oversee the exchange of 15 kirans per month for cleaning each room, and to contribute from my management fund so the school's petty cash and the water bill and other outstanding payments could be collected. The next day, 3 people had come to the school. The ministry accountant with his lackeys. They had even had lunch at the superintendent's expense and had complained about why so-and-so wasn't there, and they had done their ledger of receipts and expense vouchers and account settlements, on which I scribbled a crooked line at the bottom of each as a signature, and they had set another date for a proper party and left. And the superintendent made it clear to me without words that this time I absolutely must be there. And as he said, it was something to be thankful for that they had considered me and hadn't asked for a bribe for the middleman and were content with just that one party. In short, 300 and some odd tomans were contingent upon the school principal's presence at a party. It was the first time I had gained such importance. This was another perk of being a school principal, and truly, I was gradually beginning to understand the inner language of principals. 300 tomans of government budget depended on whether you went to a certain party or not. 300 tomans for which, for every 2-toman item, at least 12 kirans worth of paper, ink, invoices, and ledgers had been consumed. One only understands what an office means, or a ministry, when placed in such situations. I don't remember at all what I did for the next 3 days until the party date, whether I went to school or not, and if I did, what I did. But I was constantly thinking, thoughtful, should I go or not, go or not? Well, are you going or not? You see, fool, this is what they call the first step. It's always like this. They create a situation, exactly like the one you're caught in. They carve out personality and importance for you. They inflate you like a balloon and tie you to the branch of a locust tree full of thorns. The situation they've built for you prevents you from understanding what's happening. Exactly like now. Your school superintendent is exasperated, of course, with a principal like you. And he's right. He doesn't want to be ground up by these wheels. He doesn't always want to remain a superintendent either. A promotion, rank, privileges, a principalship, and higher and higher. And now you're being difficult and making a fuss. Worst of all, his mother is a burden on him. There are expenses. You can't tip the hospital nurses on 150 tomans a month. And you don't know another superintendent, do you? Even if you did, was he Salman or Abu Zar? And do you really think if they put Salman and Abu Zar in place of these meek, silent non-entities, it would make a difference? The era is gone when they wouldn't even help from the public treasury with the lamp for their house. You yourself can't be more of a nursemaid than this or do the superintendent's job. Either quit and go or take the first step. Throw the party, then feast. Give and take. Then the second step, and then the 14th. And now you're a full-fledged manager in the middle of the arena. A perfect parasite on the government treasury. An opportunist, a fair-weather friend, a smooth talker, and just like a leech, stuck to regulations, to pensions, to marriage allowances, to remote post allowances, and to table money. Ugh, I was suffocating. Once again, I put my letter of resignation in my pocket, and without making a sound about it, I didn't go on the day of the party either. Then I saw that things couldn't go on like this. I thought I should go and explain the situation to the head of the Ministry of Education, and I went. In his office was the same desk, like in newlyweds' houses, and the same shiny empty ashtray. But this time I had gotten used to the stench and smoke of managers. Greetings, pleasantries, and I sat down. But what should I say? Say I'm resigning because I didn't want to participate in the party? Wasn't that ridiculous? Or present the issue more fundamentally? Wouldn't he then take offense himself? I saw I had nothing to say.
And besides, wasn't it humiliating to chicken out and resign over 300 tomans? So what happened to all that talk of danger and the sweetness of the reward and such nonsense?
No, stay again. When your neck is destined to be broken, it's more dignified if you get run over by a car, like your fourth grade teacher. And until under the wheels of the child-killing cart. Then I laughed at these thoughts and said goodbye. I just came to pay my respects. And such lies, and I threw the letter of resignation into the gutter. But the superintendent, for a whole week he was like a dog, angry, noisy, and shouting and yelling. Back to the canes and swollen hands first thing in the morning. And did I even dare intervene? I didn't even go to ask about his mother. For a whole week, each of us ruled independently at school. I would go stealthily shut my door behind me, plug my ears, and pace from one end of the room to the other, pounding the floor until the children's noise subsided. What torment. And why exactly? Why did you go? I didn't know myself. When I thought about it, I realized that in any ruined corner of life you fall into, you gradually sink into such banality and become so accustomed to it that you don't even want to scream. Surely that young man who was caned, my third grade teacher, surely he too had gotten used to the agony and torture of prison just as easily. I knew what horrors they were subjecting him to. For 10 full days, my heart and the children's hearts beat as one, equally full of fear and terror. Until finally the money was collected. Except instead of 300 and some, only 150 tomans. The reason was that mistakes had occurred in preparing the accounts, which they had been forced to correct.
The next part of this story will be uploaded tomorrow. What you will hear in the next episode. A school full of impoverished children, a cunning principal, and a parent-teacher association that felt more like a financial operation. What is the story really about? The salvation of a school or the corruption of a system? Looking for entertainment? On this channel, we share Iranian poems, stories, and podcasts in different languages for you. If you are interested in Iranian literature, culture, and tales, this is the best place for you.